Kip, what's up, brother? Glad to be joining you again.
Both still alive. The world hasn't ended.
The world hasn't ended. I don't know, man. We've just kind of hunkered down in here. Maybe it has. So we don't really
know about it.
We don't know what's going on in the outside world, outside of Maine anyways.
Yeah. Perception is reality.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, we're surviving. Kind of, dude, my wife's got like all these chores and projects and tasks and things around the house she wants done. We just got done doing the hardwood floor in I shouldn't say hardwood floor. It's like a laminate in the front room. And then, so I got that done except for one row, legitimately just like one row that I couldn't finish because I don't have the right tool. So we ordered it on Amazon and my wife said, okay, I ordered that tool. It's going to be here on Friday. I'm like, Friday? It's Monday. And she's like, Amazon has shut down all non-essential purchases or bumped it back. They don't do Prime, I guess is what it is, on non-essential items. I'm like, this is essential. Like, who gets to decide what's essential and what isn't? So now I've got literally one row in our front room that's not done, and that infuriates me. So anyways, we get done with that, and she calls me down from my office yesterday, and she's like, hey, hon, come here. And I go into the front room, and she's got her video camera out. I'm like, what is she doing? Come to find out, we just got more packages and we got blinds. We got 18 blinds that I've got to hang here in the next couple of days as well. And that's just, this house has so many windows. So that's just the second floor is the blinds. 18 windows. I'm like, holy cow. So we're getting it done around the Mickler household, man.
Did you tell your wife that despite the whole COVID-19 and social distancing and everything, that it does not affect you at all, and that it's business as normal and you don't have all this time to do all these honey-to-dos like maybe a bunch of other guys are?
Yeah, she didn't listen.
No, they never do.
She heard me. She just didn't listen. All right, man. Well, hey, guys, what we're doing is fielding questions. Obviously, we've ramped up the information, the content we're putting out there. If you guys have noticed, I think last week we did 4 episodes as opposed to 3. And then this week we're actually doing 4 as well. And you don't know this, Kip, unless you were in the foundry for Iron Council early this morning, but we had a doctor on, a physician, and somebody who studies vaccines and studies this virus and has been doing this for 3 decades now on the podcast. We did a late night recording on Tuesday night, and then it's going to be released tomorrow. So Thursday it'll be released.
Oh, so you just posted it on the Foundry so the IC members know about it this morning?
Yeah, I gave them the heads up. I gave them a like a 48-hour, 24-hour exclusive access to it because it legitimately was one of my favorite podcasts.
Really?
Like, awesome. I know we talked about obviously coronavirus and how to combat it, how to win the war against coronavirus, and it's really interesting how Dr. Poland talked about it from the context of battle. Like if you think about an enemy, for example, you render the enemy's desire and will to fight. You render it obsolete, right? Like he just talked about it in the context of battle and war. It was very, very interesting. So the guys are going to enjoy it, and there's a lot of good information in there as well. So I'm
assuming there's a little correlation of winning the long game kind of
definitely.
Analogies as well with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sacrifices now versus sacrificing later. What are the best, the US's response compared to the UK's response? So the US is basically isolate, right? The UK, and he said up until recently, they're starting to shift this a little bit, has been this working towards the herd immunity, which means just let everybody get it, except for
it over with.
Right, those who are compromised from a health perspective and the elderly, isolate them and let everybody get it. And he kind of talked about the differences and the pros and cons. So it's really good.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm excited about that because I'm curious, does he touch base a little bit on this concept of, drawing out a war will cost you more as well, and how that correlates to our economy a little bit? Because Great Britain's approach a little bit, I think, might work better for an economy and recovery, maybe not so well from a death rate perspective versus the rather. Because to be frank, the number one concern that I have right now is, what is this going to do to our economy? How long is we're going to draw this out? And then what's the repercussions from that perspective? Yeah,
he talks a little bit about that. He's not an economist, but he does talk about that a little bit. It's a powerful episode.
You know what? Let me grab my phone. What's the name of the podcast again?
Order of Man. You may have heard of it. I don't know if you're subscribed. Maybe you ought to just subscribe and check it out. You might like it. I don't know.
You'll appreciate this. So last night, I can't remember what it was, but I even forget what she calls. Oh, she goes, yeah, was that for what was that? Your man of honor? Your man's group?
This is your
like,
wife?
Babe? Yeah. I'm like, seriously, like I've been involved now and have known Ryan for probably over 3 years, and you still don't even know the name of this thing. Yeah. She's like, your man group.
She knows. She's just messing with you. That is one thing we get a lot is, oh, your little man group, your little man club.
Man group. Yeah. Man club. That's what she said. Your man club.
Yep, that's one we get a lot. Yeah.
Man club. What the funny part was, Joe Schultz used to be on Echo way back when. If you remember, when you joined the Iron Council, you were part of Team Whiskey initially. That's right. Yeah. As kind of like an onboarding process. It was
Adam. Adam was running Team Whiskey for a lot of years there.
And Whiskey ended up having like a whole like connotation for a lot of wives because that was their first exposure of, their husbands would tell them, I'm on Team Whiskey or whatever. And Joe Schultz would always say, whenever his wife gave him a hard time about leveling up and holding him accountable to what we do here in the Iron Council, she'd be like, well, what do your whiskey boys think?
Oh, that's right. The whiskey boys.
The whiskey
boys.
Right.
Yeah. We have a pretty good time for sure. So, and usually our significant others, they don't get it until like something happens or, there's some, maybe a situation in which a man would have responded differently. And then all of a sudden he's like more level headed. He's more calm. He's able to be clear and concise and lead effectively. And she's like, wait a second, what's happening here? Cause she's used to him exploding or blowing up or blowing it out of proportion. So at that point we usually get a lot of advocates in the women as well.
Yeah. And then it's some comment of the whiskey boys have helped my husband substantially in his life.
We need to bring the whiskey boys back. I'm actually going to make a note of that. We need to bring the whiskey boys back. All right. Well, should we do what we meant to do today, which is answer questions?
Yeah. And ramble.
Yeah. And ramble. We can ramble. It's all good.
Yeah. So our questions today we're fielding from Facebook. We just have so many questions. So many people want to be part of this conversation and they do so on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/Order of Man if you want to submit your questions for future AMAs or just be part of the conversation that we're having there.
Or just be awesome.
Or just be a troll and just
don't do that. You'll get booted quickly.
Don't be a troll. We'll get rid of you.
Hey, the other thing too, on the note of conversations is I've started to do a lot more over on Instagram Live specifically. Like we had Steve Weatherford on this week. Pete Roberts is joining me today, which if you're listening to this as of the release would have been yesterday.
Yeah.
So, we're doing a lot more lives over there. So at Ryan Mixler.
You said it, not me.
I was going to talk about Brian Mitchler. Ryan Mickler, excuse me.
Oh, he doesn't even know how to pronounce his last name. He changed his last name, Mitchler.
I'm slowly becoming Brian Mitchler. Ryan Mickler, excuse me, gentlemen. And connect with us over there. That's funny.
Oh, that's hilarious. So are you going to tell us about Pete Roberts, ninja mask? Is that a legit?
Just go listen. Yeah. No, okay. What do you mean? Is it legit? Like, what do you mean by that?
Was it just cloth or is he inserting some type of
so what it is,
filter thing in there?
Go back and listen because it's actually pretty good. But what it is, it's his, I forget the name of the fabric or the term he uses for it, but it's his rash guard material. And so it's essentially a neck gaiter, but it's got a sleeve inside of it so that you can put cloth, you can put, if all you have is paper towels, if you have a mask, whatever, you can actually insert it.
Filter.
That's right. And then it's got some strings that you can, so it's done. It's changed, it's tweaked. They prototyped it and made it work well. Now look, a lot of people are like, oh, that's not as good as an N95 mask. No shit. Like it's not designed as an N95 mask. It's designed as something. And the research actually suggests that, that even just putting a bandana or a shirt over your face will eliminate some exposure. Not 100%, but will eliminate, even if it's 10%, 20%.
It's going to stop mustard gas or anything.
It's better than nothing, right? So, yeah.
And you look like a ninja. You should call it a ninja mask. I don't know about this neck gaiter thing.
Well, it's not called a neck gaiter either. It's the Defender mask.
Oh, the Okay, that sounds cool.
Yeah,
I knew I had. Yeah,
him and Jocko are pretty good at marketing.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that side of things.
You call it the fat neck.
Yeah, I don't think that will sell. fat in there.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop.
Right.
This is how the world's going bad. I drank my last Jocko white tea out of my fridge.
You better order some more.
And I was like, oh, wait. This is like the end of times. This is like my last one. I was like, this is not a good sign of my food storage if I don't have Jocko white tea laying around.
Yeah, now you're just beans and rice the rest of the time. You're going to struggle. I need Origin to come deliver me some Jocko Go.
Jocko Go.
Yeah, man. They will.
And then we, instead of this crap that I'm pounding.
Instead of this, water, like a peasant.
Water. Lame. You don't need water to live.
No, it's stupid.
No.
All right, let's go.
All right. Kyle Irving, how to deal with relationships that are stuck or not progressing for months or years.
Change it up, bro. You got to change it up. You got to mix it up, take responsibility for it, and add some variety and spice into your life. It's a little tough now, right? Because most of us are stuck at home and we're kind of falling into these mundane, monotonous routine patterns. But, there's things you can do to be creative and spice things up and let her know you're still interested, and maybe you can initiate some intimacy. You can cook dinner. You can do a family workout. You can go outside and go for a walk. Like, there's so much that you can do if you're just willing to be a little creative. Now, here's the hard part about it, and the reason that so many men don't or fall into this situation and aren't able to get out of it, because it takes effort, right? Like, it's so easy. If you think about, you're driving your truck on a like a muddy dirt trail, right? And your right tire, let's just assume, slips into the rut. You can basically, if the rut is deep enough, let go of your hands and just step on the gas pedal, and the truck will just go, right? Because you're in a track, you're in a rut. It takes no effort other than just pressing on the gas pedal. That's why it's a rut. But it takes a lot more effort to actually put your hand on the wheel, and sometimes you've got to just like violently, almost aggressively, like pop it up out of that rut. And then once it's out of that rut, it's significantly easier once you're out of the rut, right? So the hardest part is to get yourself out. And then once you're out, now you just kind of maintain and you try to stay out of that rut that you were in before by steering and everything else. So the metaphor is perfect, right? That's why it's the metaphor. So it's going to be hard initially. Not even hard. Hard's not the right word. It's just going to require some effort, some creativity, some thought process, and just looking for ways to be spontaneous, to be adventurous, to be, fun, right? Like just to mix it up. I don't know what else to say. Just mix it up, be creative, get yourself out of the rut, and then maintain and keep yourself out of that rut you've fallen into or created for yourself. Not even that you've fallen into, you just created it for yourself. And she has too. But you got to take charge of this situation.
Come on. When that stuck or not progressing is more serious, I'm assuming this changes up a little bit for you, or your thoughts.
You mean like potential separation or divorce?
Yeah.
I mean, drastic times call for drastic measures, right? Yeah. So if it's going down that path, make the corrections now as quickly as you possibly can, and you might need to be more aggressive to get yourself out of the situation. And I don't mean violent, okay, by saying aggressive. I just mean that you're going to need to take more extreme measures. Maybe that's counseling. Maybe that's just having a difficult conversation. Maybe that's picking up a new hobby or an interest or an activity, or encouraging her to do the same. Like, there's some more important things that you can do here that could potentially help you get out of that situation. I actually got an email this morning, or a message in the Foundry for the Iron Council, from a gentleman who started listening to the podcast years ago, maybe months or years. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's like, I kind of thought at first you were full of shit when you were talking about your separation with your wife, but he ended up going through a separation with his wife. And up until recently, they were separated, and he took the advice that we had shared, which is focus on yourself, make yourself the project, get in shape, get your finances in order, pick up a new interest, pick up a new hobby. And he had just messaged me this morning and said that his wife was moving back home. So I congratulated him for the work that he did. And I said, look, now don't slip into the rut, man. Like, it's easy, right? Especially now for you to slip back into the rut because you think you've won. And what do we do when we think we win? We let our guard down. I said, so you need to continue, right? You need to continue working on yourself, making yourself a priority, continue to get fit, continue to gain new information, continue to lead effectively. This thing isn't over. You got to keep doing it.
Yeah, for you.
For you, yeah, that's right. Yeah, as opposed to her. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, absolutely. If you're trying to win her over, you're going to place, even subconsciously, your effort on her, which is a mistake. You're going to drive a greater wedge between you. But if you're doing it because you want to be the best man that you can possibly be and also reap the benefits and the rewards that come with it, that's a better, more effective motive than doing it for another person, even your wife.
Yeah. Cool.
That's why I cringe a little bit when guys say, I want to be the best man I can be for my kids, or I want to be the best man I can be for my wife. And I get it. That's noble. And I don't think generally there's anything wrong with that. But if it's coming at the expense of being the best man for you, internally driven as opposed to externally driven, it's just an inferior position. That's it. It's not that it's not noble. It's just inferior to doing it because you want to be the best man that you can possibly be. That's the superior motive.
And I don't know if this is a Stoic distinction, but I would assume that a Stoic, you shouldn't base anything on what you're doing based upon someone else.
Well, you can't control what other people are doing.
Yeah. And your kids leave eventually. So then what?
They
You're
leave.
gonna stop being the best man possible because your kids aren't around. So that pressure of being there for them is no longer important.
Well, and this is what happens. This happens a lot in the military. I've noticed is that guys identify with being a warrior for so long that when they're no longer that warrior, they lose a huge portion of their identity. And the reality was they were never a warrior. They were a man who happened to also be a warrior or filling in that role for the moment temporarily. But if you begin to wrap up your identity in warrior or CEO or athlete or even father or husband, all that stuff can be stripped away. Whether your wife leaves or you leave or there's an unfortunate situation or she dies or whatever, now all of a sudden you're in a bad way because you wrapped up so much of your identity into your occupation or your role as opposed to, hey, I just want to be a whole, a complete, effective, capable man. And then if I'm serving as a father, great, I'm going to use those skill sets to be the best father that I can be. When I become a grandfather or a husband or a CEO or whatever, I'm going to use the effective skill sets that apply to that particular situation in that moment. And then as things evolve and change over time, I can still be good at those other things and not have my identity wrapped up into that temporary moment or position or title.
Yeah. And I think it's important to note that you can create that identity. You can create that purpose. We're not taken away from being a warrior is not a great purpose.
No, of course not.
Great.
Yeah.
But if that goes away, then create something else. Like don't be a victim of what comes your way, versus creating your purpose and what you're kind of focused on.
And you talk about it a lot is you can develop a sense of purpose in anything that you're doing. Anything. Yeah. Anything in that purpose. I was shoveling snow off my deck this morning and most people would say that that's menial, that's just a chore, that's just a task. I actually enjoy doing it because I had my earbuds in, I was listening to some podcasts, I was looking at the beauty of our backyard. I was actually getting some exercise because I was, instead of just pushing it off, I was shoveling it off over the rail and counting how many reps I did for exercise. So you find purpose in every moment. Viktor Frankl talks about this in Man's Search for Meaning. If you guys aren't familiar, he was a prisoner in Auschwitz, I believe, during the Holocaust, and he talked about his search for meaning and finding purpose in the most horrific and tragic situation a man could possibly find himself in, I believe. So very powerful book, Man's Search for Meaning. Well,
and you had a guest that talked about this, about the power of finding, the power of focusing in the moment, and he talked about, when SEALs go through training, the guys that look too far over the horizon and think about the entire week, they're the guys that fail because they're looking too far ahead. They're overran. Their minds are just disconnected. But the guys that focus in the moment and go, I'm going to do whatever I'm working on right now to the best of my ability and find purpose in what I'm doing right now. Those are the guys that succeed. And I think that just even translates to shoveling the snow, right? If you think about all the things you have to do today, you're not going to even show up and shovel the snow well. But if you focus like, hey, I'm doing this right now, I'm going to do this at the best of my ability, then it allows you to focus in the moment and grow in the moment and be effective in what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. A couple of things I just wrote down here as you were talking about that. Bert Soren, president and CEO of Sorenex, talks about building bricks, just one brick at a time. You're not building the wall, you're just building, or the fortress, you're building one brick at a time. Sal Frisilla with First Form, he talks about left foot, right foot. So when you don't know what you need to do, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. And then Jesse Itzler has a phrase in a comment that he says, be where your feet are. Be where your feet are, right? Just be present in the moment. I love that. I think that's awesome. I never heard that before until like a week or two ago. And it's a very powerful thought and concept. Be where your feet are.
All right. Rob Caruso, thoughts on Red Pill and MGTOW?
MGTOW, men going their own way. I think there's a lot of value to be found in some of these movements, and that's how these movements work. Is there's really truth everywhere, right? It's just a matter of is it entirely truth, or is it truth mixed with some doctrine that won't necessarily serve you well? And that's what these movements are. So what happens in these movements? Are you familiar with these? Because you were asking about them earlier.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
and I'm assuming Red Pills has nothing to do with the Matrix. So I'm assuming that's
it's a play off of the Matrix concept.
Oh, it is?
But
Okay.
It is. It's a play off of it. But you can take the blue pill or the red pill, and the red pill is like the woke, right? Like you are aware of what's happening and aware of what's going on. In this context, it's aware of the assault, right? Assault or attack on masculinity, and how women are the enemy and you need to go your own way and not do anything for women. Look, again, there is some truth and validity to, and we talk about it actually with Order of Man, right? Be strong for yourself. We just talked about it 5 minutes ago. Be strong for yourself. In a way, go your own way and figure yourself out. Here's where the MGTOW movement and the Red Pill movements lack, is they never talk about re-engaging. So it's like, go on your own, do your own thing, reject culture, reject society, reject women, dismiss marriage, dismiss these traditional values that we've held, and just like go your own way and isolate yourself.
And don't serve and benefit other people.
Right.
Just focus on yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So here what we talk about is you focusing on yourself so that you can more effectively protect, provide, preside. And if you narrow those three terms down, all of them have an element of service. So we are to lift ourselves up through our own efforts, and then we are more capable of serving our wife, our children, our friends, our colleagues, our coworkers, our communities, and everybody that we as men have a desire to serve, and we're called to serve, frankly, as well. So that's where I see the shortcomings of the Red Pill and the MGTOW movement. I also see this as the breeding grounds for incels. These are involuntary celibates. These are victims at their core. These are men who believe that, the name says it all, involuntary celibate, that women have rejected them, that society has cast them aside. And look, I think there's some problems. The family court system, for example, is a prime example of this. Well, what ends up happening is all of these guys that talk about this extreme feminism as something that is wrong with culture and society, which I believe, they're actually engaging in the same behavior, but for men. So it's the men's that's right. Yeah. It's the male version of extreme feminism.
It's the same way the feminist movement got started.
Right.
It's probably warranted and justified at first, and then it almost becomes its own, hate group.
Exactly. So these, traditionally what I see, and I'm gonna upset a lot of people here, because there's probably guys who believe wholly in the MGTOW movement or the Red Pill movement or whatever, is the breeding grounds for victims. Typically and generally what I see is this is an area where men who are hurt and damaged by a divorce or a woman or society or culture or some element of it have never learned how to deal with it in a healthy way. Instead of compartmentalizing their experience or taking some level of responsibility for it, they reject and dismiss the idea as a whole. So, for example, they have a poor marriage, a lousy marriage. Maybe they marry, let's just take this example. Maybe they marry a woman who is conniving and she's just not a good person, just like a horrible human being. Let's just take that as an example. But rather than isolate and compartmentalize to the fact that this woman was that way, they just assign marriage as being that way.
Or all women.
All women, right? And also rather than taking any level of accountability and responsibility for, hey, you're the one that married that woman. like you knew. Oh, but Ryan, I didn't know she changed. Come on, man. You knew, but the sex was good. She had a hot body, or what, you know, you were stupid, young, fell in love. I mean, there's all sorts of things. You should have known. Yeah. You're a man, right? Like, you should have known. So that's not to excuse that potential behavior. It's just to say that, okay, well, be smarter.
Yeah.
Like, be more rational next time. Like, be aware, but don't just lump it into this broad category that all women are bad, or the institution of marriage is a failed thing. It's just not a healthy way. And frankly, it's very immature. It's a very immature way to approach life.
Yeah. Well, and that's, to your point, that's exactly what's happening on the opposite side.
Right.
All men are chauvinist pigs, or blah, blah, blah. That's a huge generalization as well. Just because someone may have been exposed to a few guys that are,
right,
complete jerks doesn't necessarily mean we're all that way. And to your point, there's no growth in victimhood.
Exactly.
And so if we go along with life demonizing an entire group and being a victim of them, well, guess what? You're not doing taking accountability.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we see a lot of these guys come out in the comments when, I don't know if you remember the Friday Field Notes I did on, I think it was titled Marriage, What to Expect.
I told you I haven't subscribed to the podcast yet.
Oh,
so
well,
I'll have to check
go back and start listening to the 500 episodes we've done now. We see a lot of this in the comments. Like, the MGTOW guys always come out because they're like, oh yeah, marriage, I know what to expect. Marriage is stupid.
Yeah.
And that's all they'll put. Yeah. It's like, all right, well, millions of men would disagree with you. Some marriages are, and some women are that way, and some men are that way. But that doesn't apply broadly, I don't think.
Yeah, and what sucks, and if you think about, like, from having some empathy, it's like, that sucks that you think that way. Like, really, like, one, maybe your past marriage was really that bad, and sorry for that. But you and I can both say that the joys and the growth in which I've gained through a marriage would have never been possible any other way.
Yeah.
There's growth in that space of marriage that is not possible, period. Yeah. It's just like, and hopefully I don't piss someone off with this, but it's like when people are like, oh, we don't have kids, we have a dog or whatever, and they think it's the equivalent. You're like, it's not the same.
No.
And you can't even logically have that conversation with them of what they're missing.
They don't know.
Possible.
How would they know?
They can't even comprehend.
Right.
Because you just can't until you're a parent. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's interesting. Like, this, it's almost like someone did a brain dump of just data into your mind and your emotions and your heart. And you go, whoa, I am now different. Just literally by participating in parenthood.
Right.
And then the whole process of having to deal with children is a whole growth scenario all by itself. But
definitely. Yeah. I always love when I hear somebody say, I don't have kids, but I have a dog. That's cool.
No,
but they're not the same.
I think they're just not. And I wish, and I know they think it is, and they have someone they love, and
No, that's why I'm saying it's cool, but it's not even like, that's great. You have a dog. It's fine, but it's not even remotely the same, but cool. I like dogs. I have both. I have a dog and kids. Beat that, suckers.
Yeah.
It's like a contest.
Yeah. Well, everything's a contest with Mr. Mitchler.
Mr. Mitchell. No. No. Mr. Mitchler does not engage in contest. That's barbaric.
Oh, that's right. That's barbaric, overly aggressive, and
yes, toxic. We would never want to engage in any sort of competition because then there has to be a winner, which means there has to be a loser.
Yeah.
And nobody is a loser. Nobody is a loser.
Yeah. Even if you're a horrible person, you're not a loser.
They're a horrible person.
Oh,
that's just
horrible. That's
those people are just victims of their circumstances. They're not horrible people. They just need a hug. That's all they need.
Time stamp. Let's make that a video of on YouTube.
Let's not do that.
No one's a loser.
Let's not do that. Just isolate that and make it as real. All right, go ahead.
All right, Jason Sanchez. Ryan, I remember you saying that one of your dreams is to get a ride in a fighter jet.
Yeah.
Do you have any promising leads?
I have a couple of angles that I've pursued and routes that I've pursued, but I have not yet been able to secure that. So if you're listening and you can make this happen, this is actually one of the few things that, if required, I would shave my beard for. Like, if I had to seal my mask, I don't even care about coronavirus. I won't shave my beard for coronavirus. But if I got to seal my mask so I can fly on a fighter jet, sign me up. I'm in. So if you guys have some connections to whether it's the Thunderbirds or Blue Angel or whoever or whatever, I'm all about it. And I don't even like flying. In fact, I hate flying, but I will fly in a fighter jet.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, man, it will be
Have
awesome.
you seen the videos of people like experiencing 7G?
Yeah.
Like almost passed
Freaked out and passed out. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure I'll pass out, but it's cool.
That's awesome. All right, Paul Knowles, will you ever offer Order of Man, Origin Main underwear to match the rash guards that we had in the past? I actually think you should.
You're talking about the undergear? Is that what he's referring to?
Yeah, the Origin Main undergear.
I should talk to Pete. Pete would do that. So if you guys want it, then yeah, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna have some new rash guards designed, so those will be available specifically for. Why am I drawing a blank? Help me here. Immersion camp. Yes.
Immersion camp. Yep.
And so we'll have those for there, but we'll also have others for sale. But the undergear, I'm telling you, that undergear, like I don't get excited about underwear, but that undergear is awesome. It's one of their most underrated products.
Yeah, I like them. I bought like 6 pair. I have like every design.
I love them.
From Origin on them.
Yeah, one for every day of the week.
Yes, sir.
I guess except for one day. You need one other extra pair.
It helps my guard passing. Instead of wearing spats when no-gi, I just wear those. And guys just totally let me pass instantly.
Right.
Yeah,
they don't even want to roll with you. Like you've just gotten that much better. They're like, I don't want to roll. Tips over your teabagging north-south on everybody. And they're like, why are these guys tapping to this?
I found a new move. It must like choke them or something. I don't know.
Suffocation by ball sack. Yeah, not interested in that.
No thanks. Alex Schwartz, what was your biggest doubt, if any, when starting this movement, and what has helped you push through it?
I didn't have any doubts because I didn't have any expectations. I mean, look, the more I do this and the more I learn and the more I try to take risks and do new things, the more I realize that our expectations are hindering us. Like they're not good. I'm trying to think of like a healthy reason to have an expectation about something. The only thing I can think of is that if you're going into a difficult or dangerous situation, having an expectation about it might prepare you for that thing.
Yeah.
But generally, I think the expectations we set on experiences and other people don't actually serve us, because then we're always going to miss the expectation. We're always going to fall short of the expectation. Even with movies, when new movies come out, I try not to say, "Oh, that movie looks rad," because every time I think a movie looks good, I go and I'm like, "That movie was shit," and everybody's like, "What are you talking about? It's a great movie." I'm like, "No, it's horrible," because I had built this thing up in my mind.
Yeah.
So I would answer that by saying just be very careful of your expectations. Try to be as objective as you possibly can. Hire mentors, listen to coaches, and be realistic about what an endeavor will take. And then you won't be as afraid of it. You won't have as much fear. You won't feel as bad about not hitting some false sense of expectations that you had. This works for endeavors and people, by the way. Like I don't expect much from people. That's not a pessimistic view. It's just, no, I don't expect. And even when I have friends and I reach out or I make connections, like I don't expect anything in return. And the lowering of expectations on my part towards other people has proven to be very, very valuable in my life, for sure.
I think most of the time if we look at scenarios in our life where we set high expectations on something, or just set expectations on things, a lot of that is not dealt in reality.
No, of course not.
And then when those expectations go unmet, we have a hard time letting go, right? All of us have an expectation getting married probably at one point, probably mostly because we were younger and we were still putting expectations all over stuff, or expectations on how your kids should show up in life. And the minute they don't, it's not like we go, oh well, and then you deal in reality. Instead, make them wrong. You should be this way. And we hold that expectation constantly to the fire and to them and make them wrong for not meeting an expectation that a lot of the time we never even communicated to them.
Right.
And it's just in our own head and is unfair. It takes agency and freedom from someone, possibly in some scenarios. And then we lash out and act a certain way because we're upset that our expectation wasn't met.
Right.
It's gnarly.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this though, Brian.
Brian. Now you're messing up.
Oh man. What's your name?
This
Brian.
This is bad.
This is really funny.
Hey,
So,
before you get to that question, let me say one other thing, because I do believe there's an exception to this.
okay.
And if you are a boss or a team leader or a father or a coach, and you have people under you that need to perform to a certain level, then you should have expectations, and you should communicate those expectations to those individuals so they know what they're trying to meet.
Yeah.
That is
They
one
have some
area.
form of measurement of what success looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is one area, and I'm sure there's others where I do believe it is healthy to have expectations. Just don't let them go unsaid. Make sure you're communicating those with people.
I like it. So back to Alex's original question, because it was interesting, because it's funny. The first thing you said was, well, I just don't have an expectation. And I think, well, and we laughed a little bit. And I think we laugh is because when I heard you say that, and I think when a lot of people hear someone say, oh, we just don't have expectations, that a lack of action gets associated with that as well.
Yeah.
Where, oh, I don't have any expectations, so I'm not fully committed, and I'm not going to worry about it and whatever. And I'd like you to clarify, how do we not have expectations or set lower expectations, but still be high achievers in what we're wanting to accomplish? Because I think we think those are often tied to one another, or one drives action less or more.
Right. Well, expectations aren't the same as goals. Right. So I might have goals and objectives to have this many downloads or do this many podcasts or reach these certain things. That's a goal. That's something I'm working towards. Now, I don't have an expectation of a timeline or how effective I'll be, because a lot of this is external circumstances. Like, I don't know if people will listen to the podcast. I don't know if people will accept.
Outside of your control.
It completely is, right?
Yeah.
Now, where it is valuable, though, to have these goals and objectives is now you can, to go back to what I said earlier, is having mentors and coaches. So if your goal is, let's just say for the podcast, let's say my goal was to do one a week. You know, when I was very first starting the podcast, that means that at the end of the year, I'll have 52 podcasts completed, right? That's my objective. That's something within my control. It's something that I want to accomplish. Now you have mentors and coaches, people who have done it, ideally, or coached other people to do it. And that individual is going to tell you, yes, that's possible, or no, that's not possible, or here's something that could come up that would keep you from accomplishing that. Like, there's been certain weeks where we've had things come up. There's been little changes in our schedule. Little variables and situations have come up that could potentially keep us from releasing a podcast episode. But for the last 5 years, hear me on this, guys. For the last 5 years, I have not missed a single podcast episode. That's upwards of 500 podcasts that I've done without missing a single one. There was one time we almost missed, and you helped me make sure that we got it done.
Yeah.
So that's because I was clear about what it would take. I didn't just assume I knew everything about it. I talked with people. I was mentored by other people. I had conversations with other podcasters who had done things similar. So my expectations they're no longer expectations. They're little marks that people have told me about that have gone before. So yeah, it's not that I don't have goals or objectives, is that I just don't have place this false reality on the situation. I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can in the achievement of my objectives and goals.
Yeah. And I think that allows you to reduce the meaning that you put around things. You know, if you had an expectation of, okay, I want this many downloads within a couple of weeks, and let's say your goal was, because let's be really clear, the goal and the objective is be consistent, do these things, and the outcome, let's say the outcome's not there. Then you just pivot.
Right.
And you're not going to add all this oh, I failed, right? Right. I'm not doing all these things and I failed and this isn't going to work. Instead, you're like, okay, pivot, ineffective result. I'm going to go in this direction, make necessary adjustments to reach the goal.
Right. And as we're talking about this, when I think about objectives, that is something within our control. So here's my objective. Here's something I want to accomplish.
Yep.
And here's what I'm going to do to achieve that. Then on the other side of the spectrum, you have expectations, which are not within your control, right? I expect people to listen to this. I expect me to have 10,000 downloads. I expect whatever the expectation is.
Yeah.
That's not within my control. I can influence some of that through the goals and objectives and the tasks that I'm doing, but expectations, there's not a lot of control on your part for that.
Yeah.
Because usually we're placing them on outside circumstances or other people. Like I have my own expectations. Like I expect that I'll get up in the morning, that I'll do my workout, that I'll go through my routine, that I'll do my planning, that I'll do my tasks, that I'll send emails, that I'll engage with the guys in the Iron Council, that I'll do videos. That's my expectation I have for myself, completely within my control.
Yep.
But I have no expectation of you unless you've agreed to it. So Kip, for example, with this podcast, you have agreed that you will be here at 11:30 on Tuesday morning so we can record these. And here you are, right? So I expect you to be here. And if you're not going to be here, I would expect that you would tell me you can't make it, like we've done in the past. Yep. Because we've talked about it. We've communicated it. So the expectation is now clear. We've both agreed on it, and there it is. If you fail to meet the expectation, not just once, but if it's a reoccurring thing, I got to redefine the relationship and vice versa.
Yeah. And it goes back to Kyle's question earlier about, stuck relationship and making it progress. You can see where this expectation comes into play, having objectives, owning how we show up. And that's why that's so important, is you owning how we show up and doing it for you and who you are being as a man is what's more powerful than anything. Mm-hmm. Because you can't control your spouse. Right. You can't control these other scenarios. And so you becoming the best version of yourself needs to be based upon your terms and what's within your control. Now, are we ultimately doing that to hopefully influence people for the good so we can serve them? For sure. But it shouldn't be at the center of our objective.
I really like the term and the meaning and the significance of influence. I think about that with my kids. Like I can't get them to do what I want. Actually, I probably can, but it's just compliance. So it's kind of an inferior.
And it goes away as they get older a little bit, right? You start losing
for sure.
Some of
they
that.
Get some independence. But the question becomes, and this is almost a game for me, is how do I influence them to do things? And what's interesting about influence is they have to decide. It's not my decision. Influence is not my decision. They have to voluntarily, or maybe even subconsciously, decide to be influenced by me. So when I want my kids to do their chores, the way that I say it actually matters. Yeah. I could command, do your chores because I said so. And they will comply the younger that they are. They'll be upset about it and it'll be a nightmare, but they'll comply. Or you can think about the way that you frame it. A lot of the times the way that we frame it is, hey, this is the cost of having food on the table. This is the cost of having a bed to sleep in. This is the cost of having this beautiful home that we live in. And so if you aren't interested in paying the cost, then you don't get to reap the benefits, which means you don't get to sleep in your bed. You don't have mom to cook dinner for you because you're not paying for it. And that doesn't make them happy about doing it, but they're like, okay, yeah, I kind of get that. Right?
Or at least see their role in the overall process.
Exactly. Yeah. So influence is a very interesting phenomenon to me.
Interesting. All right, next question. Austin Michi, how do you remain focused on long-term objectives when not seeing any short-term results?
Coaches.
I like this.
This goes back to coaches because you're going to do a lot of work. Let's go to jiu-jitsu, for example. Like when I very first started, I was frustrated. And I'm frustrated every time I roll. I'm frustrated.
There's no short-term results.
Right.
For a long time.
For a long time. Until one day you roll with somebody and you submit them and you're like, oh, I think I'm getting it. And then 10 minutes later, somebody destroys you and you're like, oh, never mind.
Totally.
But that's just how it works. A lot of the things that we do are going to be absent of any immediate result. So the way that you do it is you connect with people who have gone before, and this goes back to expectations, can give you a realistic expectation of how long you need to put in the work in order to produce the result. So we'll go back to podcasting to go back to Alex's question.
So that way your expectations are in check a little bit and are realistic, or?
That's exactly right. Because then I can be frustrated and I can go to somebody who's been doing it before and I could say, look, I'm not seeing the result. And that person could say, yeah, that's typical. Yeah, that's how it goes. You actually won't see the result for about 12 months or whatever, right? I'm just making up numbers. But they're going to line you out in a way that helps you see that, okay, this is not abnormal. Like I'm not just treading water here. Like I actually am moving, although I can't necessarily see the result itself.
I see.
So I have those mentors. And then also, this is very important, is just find significance in the activity itself. Okay, so if you're working out,
be where your feet are.
Yes. It's not about losing 10 pounds. Yeah, that's the objective, but find purpose and joy and meaning in working out, free of losing any weight. Is there value in just working out? Is there value in the rower? Is there value in a deadlift? Is there value in push-ups? Is there value in pull-ups? Intrinsic value. Yeah. How about reading? You know, a lot of people talk about reading, like, I want to read 100 books this year. Well, that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But is there intrinsic value in just reading? Just looking at the words, pondering on those words, and then incorporating what they teach you. Is there value in that activity alone? Of course there is. Free of any external result that you'll produce, like reading 100 books this year. So if you're not experiencing the results you want, it's probably typical. This is life. Find a coach, find a mentor, somebody who can guide you and create realistic expectations about how long it will take. And also just find joy in the work. I genuinely enjoy podcasting. I like these conversations. Yes, I want the downloads. Yes, I want the reach. Yes, I want all that stuff. But I also just like podcasting. I like reading. I like shooting my bow. I like doing jujitsu. I like those things intrinsically, just for the activity themselves, not necessarily for the result they'll produce.
Yeah.
That's why the battle plan is so powerful. And then I'll let you say something here, Kip.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Is if you look at most goal planning and goal setting, it's very results oriented, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you only create or identify the result so you can work backwards in the present. That's the only value in living in the future. Too many people live in the future. Oh, when I have X amount of dollars, then I'll be happy and life will be bliss and everything else. Yeah. That's ridiculous because you don't know if that's going to happen. And you're not driving yourself towards any action. So the only value in looking forward or backwards is to like triangulate where you are today. People say never look backwards. No, actually you should look backwards so you can see what worked and what didn't, so you can produce better results moving forward on the timeline.
In the moment.
Right. And then some people say, oh, you should never, live in the future. That's bound not to happen. Well, you ought to look to the future and consider what could happen and then work backwards into, oh, if I want this future, I have to do these things, which means that today I need to be getting up early and working out. Yeah. That's the value in looking backwards and forwards.
Yeah. And the value of finding value in the moment is you'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it's like banging your head against the wall.
Yeah. You're not going to, if you're motivated, and maybe I shouldn't use that word motivated, but if you're doing it for some long-term goal that is so far ahead of you and you're hating the moment, you're not going to do it. When things get tough, you're not going to do it. So one of the best ways to push through or to grow is to find joy in the moment. You find joy in the action, and then you'll do it.
Yeah. One of the ways that has worked well for me, and I talked about this on an Instagram Live I did a couple of days ago with Steve Weatherford. A lot of guys are familiar with Steve. I believe it was Steve. Sometimes they all blend together. Anyways, I think it was Steve, was talking about perfection versus excellence. And I don't think it was Steve. Who was it? I don't know. Anyways, it was good. Whoever said it. If it was you that said it, thank you. You don't want to strive for perfection because it's just not possible. You can't ever get anything perfect exactly right. There's always room for improvement. And if you get it perfect, then is there anything left to do? No. Yeah. So instead, strive for excellence. And I think about that in all contexts, like this podcast. How can we shore up the audio? How can we tighten up the internet connections? How can we change the lighting in the studio? How can we be better prepared for it? If I'm sending an email, it's like, what word do I use here? How do I send this in a way that conveys the message that I'm going after? How do I send it in a way that's compelling to invite somebody on the podcast? Like if you try to find excellence in everything that you're doing, you can better be where your feet are, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not about what it's going to produce. It's like, how can I make this the best thing ever? Like if I'm shoveling the deck, how can I shovel this deck with excellence? Like, what do I need to do? Do I need a better shovel? Do I need to do it in a different way? Do I need to go this way versus this way? Like anything, any situation you can be excellent in. And there's value
That's
in
interesting. I really like what, at least this thought entering my mind is like when you plan on something being perfect, it associates right or wrong. It was perfect or it's not perfect, where excellence is just effective.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or improved.
Yeah.
And I like that because I think when we add perfect, it's like, okay, well, what is perfect? Like it's a state.
It's
that
completion.
Needs to be established. It's completion.
Right.
Which you may never implement. You may never take action because it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's excellent, well, you can do that.
Yeah.
Excellence always plausible. Perfect is not.
And excellence is relative as well. Even to go back to jiu-jitsu, my excellence with my current skill set is significantly lower than your excellence. Yeah. So if you perform,
so it forces us to grow.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and if you performed at my level of excellence, you would be doing yourself a disservice. I cannot possibly at this stage of my journey, cannot possibly perform to your level of excellence. It's just not possible. And if I'm holding myself to that expectation, I'm going to feel pretty shitty about myself and my performance. Yeah. So I can be excellent where I am.
Yeah. And find joy in finding that, doing that excellence where you are.
Yes.
Yeah. Eduardo Tellus, he's the, Tellus is a stud. So Tellus married Vitor Shaolin's sister. And
okay. I didn't know who you were talking. I'm like, who? I didn't know who
Tellus is a old school BJJ legend.
Okay.
And his school in California, the logo is a 99. Mm-hmm. And I just learned this like 2 days ago. He was doing a Instagram live and someone asked like, why 99? Like, where did this come from? And it's that. He says, because perfect is not possible. And so 99% there is close to perfect, but it requires constant attempt to stay at 99 to try to become better. But 99 is the goal, not 100.
Interesting.
Exactly what we're talking about. I'm like, I loved it. Because it was exactly what we're saying is there's no such thing as perfect. Don't even try for perfect. Perfect's not even possible, but excellence is.
Yeah.
And in his definition, 99 is excellence.
That's awesome. I like it. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Justin Burke, I believe them to be a classic of their own. However, it is very important subject to be had. Pancakes, waffles, or French toast.
I was like, this is going to be deep.
I know. I was like, I thought I was going.
Okay, so pancakes, waffles, or French toast. If I had to pick, I would do waffles.
Really? Mm-hmm. You're a waffle guy, huh?
Yeah, I would do waffles with lots of butter and maple syrup, which I don't know if you know this or not, but my wife is making her own maple syrup.
I saw that.
It is delicious.
It's super cool.
It's cool and it's easy. It's a little time consuming. Yes. All you do is you put a tap in the tree with a bucket and it drips out the sap, and there's water in there. It drips out the sap. And then you put it in a big pot and you boil it to, I think you heat it up to like 218 degrees or something.
The sap.
And then whatever's left is the maple syrup. And then there's different grades of it. Yeah, there's different grades. So like the beginning of the year is a certain grade towards, and it's clear. In the beginning of the year, it's more clear. It's different. Yep. And then the end of the year is different, and it's more brown. Like we're noticing that, but it is delicious. But I'll tell you what, even more. I've
never known how maple syrup was created.
That's how it's made. It's and my
it's
kids
sap, tree sap.
That's all it is. There's no other ingredients. There's nothing else you put it. You just boil it down. That's all you do. And it's delicious. My kids, we had it at the table the other day, and we're having, I don't know, waffles or pancakes, and one of my kids is like, hey, can you pass me the syrup? It was like the Aunt Jemima's or whatever it was. Yeah. And I'm like, ooh, why? He's like, this is so good. I'm like, that's disgusting. Like, I will never go back to regular syrup now that I've had this maple syrup. It is so good.
And now because you said this, some dude's going to be like hiking, see some tree sap, put it in his mouth, says, Ryan says this tastes great.
Yeah. Try it. Tell me what you think of it.
Let us know what you think of tree sap gum.
I will say that even better than pancakes and French toast and waffles, German pancakes.
Crepes?
No.
Are they crepes?
No.
What's the difference?
I don't even know how to
What's
explain
the
it.
German pancake like?
It's done in like a pan, like a glass pan, and it's probably the same batter or whatever, but it's baked and it gets like fluffy. Oh my gosh. It's delicious. So good. So
I love the French toast, but my wife's grandma was from France, and so we have this French influence in our family, and usually the birthday breakfast request of my wife is usually crepes.
Is that right?
Yeah, she makes some mad crepes that are super.
What do you put in your crepes? Like, what's your favorite thing to put in crepes?
My favorite is lime or lemon juice and sugar.
Lemon juice and sugar?
Yeah, you just inside the crepe, you put lemon juice and sprinkle it with sugar and roll
weird.
it up.
I'm gonna try that.
And
I like anything
Nutella
like
and
Nutella, bananas, strawberries. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, the lemon and sugar is.
I'll have to try that out. Sounds weird, but I'll give it a shot.
All right, Joey Neely, Ryan, what are some of your major reasons that you would self-publish your next book?
More control. Obviously, you're going to make more of what you sell, like 100%.
What's the difference to self-publish versus have a publisher?
Yeah,
like,
so a
what
publisher.
Are you doing? Yeah.
So a publisher in the publishing process, typically you'll have a company, a publishing house that will edit your book. They'll review it. They'll make sure it's on track.
Suggesting text changes and everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And then they'll help with the design and the marketing, and they usually have marketing funnels. They'll help get it in bookstores and other outlets like Amazon, et cetera, et cetera.
I see. So they're taking a working copy and helping you push that into a finalized product and market and push it and everything.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep. And the publicity and everything else.
Okay.
Self-publishing is not having that at all. You do everything. You're responsible for writing it. You're responsible for having it edited. You don't even have to have it edited if you didn't want to. I would highly encourage you to. You're responsible for the marketing, for the copy, for the way that it looks, for the distribution, putting it on Amazon, getting it into bookstores, all the publicity that goes with it. And in this day and age, it's becoming more viable to self-publish. We just had, in fact, on Tuesday this week, we had Tucker Max on the podcast. Not well known yet for publishing, but he's got a company called Scribe Media, and they actually help you get your words out in your voice. So it's kind of a blend between self-publishing and using a publicist.
I see.
It's actually a pretty cool service.
Is it fairly easy to create the books? There's lots
if you're
of companies
self-publishing?
Yeah.
Yeah, usually most people, if they're self-publishing, will do that via Amazon, right? So
okay.
Amazon, you can get them printed through Amazon. Like it's very easy to do it that way.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. So I don't think through Amazon. I might be wrong, but I don't think you can do like hardcover books. But you can do your audio, you can do your ebook, you can do paperback version, all through Amazon, and that's what most self-publishers will do.
So I think the natural next question is: are you thinking about doing self-publishing on the next book?
I don't know. There's pros and cons to both. Like a publisher it's a professional product. It's probably going to look a little bit more professional, look better. You're going to have the distribution outlets. You actually get to say that you had a publisher, which I think there's more validity to that.
Yeah.
I had a publisher versus because everybody like writes
work.
A book. Yeah. Not that it necessarily is. It just sounds like or comes across more like it is. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. There's pros and cons to both.
Love it. All right, Jeremy Piper, overcoming fear after an injury.
Well, that's not a lot of context. I wonder if he's talking about like fear of like going back and doing the thing where he got injured.
That's what I assume.
I would just say slowly, like just ease into it. Take your time. I don't really know. I can't answer that because fortunately I've never really been injured. Like I've had aches and pains and little sprains and bumps and bruises, but I've never broken a bone. I've never had a major surgery. I'm dealing with some shoulder pain right now, so I'm just doing the best I can to rehabilitate that. And what's that?
Kimura.
That must be, yeah. My knees were hurting when you guys were working on heel hooks the other day. Did you? I didn't tell you that. My left knee was like destroyed after that. Not injured, but I was like,
it's all loose.
I was like, holy cow, my knee hurts. And I was thinking about why it hurts. I'm like,
So dangerous.
So, I mean, nobody was cranking on anything, but still, like, I felt it.
Yeah, just going over the move kind of loosens things up a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, like I said, I don't know. Have you ever had any injury that you have to overcome? I really haven't, so I'm fortunate that way.
But I think for me, I mean, let's be frank, even Jeremy's questions, it's more of a mental thing, right? And so I've seen that in my life where I got hurt doing something, trying a certain move, skateboarding when I was a kid, and I'm like staying away from that move now because I ate it last time, and now I have like this mental block against it. And in fact, I just had this conversation with my daughter. She's 8 going on 9, and she's just on this kick of, I want to play baseball. And so I'm like, all right. So we got her a little mitt, and we're practicing with the tennis ball initially, just to be careful. And she took one to the face, got a bloody nose, and she's freaking out and crying. And we wiped her up, and I'm like, Kika, now we gotta throw like 10 more pitches. And she's like, why? I'm like, because this is the moment where you prove to yourself that you can do this without that ball hitting you again. And that's why we have to do it right now.
Right.
So we just wiped up really quick, and we threw a couple more, hard throws at each other. So then that way she could get over that fear immediately, because if we stopped then and then came back the next day, she's going to be even less likely to play again.
Right.
And you wait another day and even less likely to do it again. So I think those mental blocks, as quick as we can turn it around, whether it's even public speaking, you do a public speaking and you mess up and you sound like an idiot, do it as soon as possible again.
Just do it again.
Just to get over it.
Yeah.
Just to get over it.
Yeah. That's good advice.
Kyle Shields, was there any particular inspiration behind your weekly manly plans this weekend posts? And Kyle's talking about posts that Ryan does on a regular basis on Facebook. Seems like a great way to build a community, and has wondered what, if anything, inspired this.
I wouldn't say some grand inspiration, but really I just wanted the guys to be able to share moments that they were working on to inspire others to potentially do some of that stuff. So, we get some great pictures, guys. And I say always post your pics, right? I want to see their pictures. Yeah. So guys taking their kids fishing or working on a project, or, maybe they're working or they're building their car or whatever, whatever it is they're doing. I just look at it as an opportunity for guys to brag on themselves a little bit and talk about what they're doing. And then hopefully they'll inspire another man who looks at it and says, oh man, I want to try that, or I want to do that, or I should take my kids fishing. So there wasn't any grand inspiration behind it. I will say that I started that early on, and I think a big reason of why I started it was I was trying to build the community. And how do you get people to respond? That's always been a question of mine. Like, how do you get people to engage and respond? You just ask them. That's it. You just ask good questions. If you ask good questions, people will respond. If you challenge them in some way, typically people will respond. If you give them something to share about themselves, brag on themselves a little bit, they'll respond. So early on, when I was building the Facebook group, I was really trying to experiment with ways to get guys involved. And I did that one time. I might have seen it somewhere, but I did that one time and it took off. And so I've done it just about every week since. I've missed some weeks, but every week since. And it's typical that we'll get 200, 300, 400 comments from guys that are like, oh, I'm doing this, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. And it's really cool to see. I wish I could see all of them. I just can't get to all of them at this point, but it's cool.
Well, and with a lot of the workforce right now working remote, a lot of you guys may have teams that you're running remotely now for the first time ever. And there's clever ways to engage your team just like this.
Yeah.
And I've even done this in the past where I've asked my team, they're like, hey, quick break, favorite toy from when you're a kid, pictures only.
Right. Oh, cool. Yeah,
exactly. It was hilarious.
It's
Someone's
fun,
like finding a stomper truck from the 90s, like, this is my favorite toy, and it was enjoyable, and it created some conversation, and you kind of get to know people a little bit because there's a little bit of backstory or sharing or banter that happens because of it as well. So
yeah, I like it. It's cool.
Yeah. But I think your idea plays a part into the workforce right now, right?
Totally.
Because a lot of us are working remote. So.
Anytime you're a leader, like your whole goal is to engage people. That is your objective as a leader. How do you engage them? Not just with personal stuff, also professionally, but the better you can get at engaging, the better success, the more effective they'll be. It's just good. It's good to engage people.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's take one or two more, Kip, and then we got to wrap this thing up.
Carson Phillips, what are some struggles to expect in a new marriage? My fiance and I are about 4 months away from our wedding. How can we plan for these struggles? And what are some of the ways to best go about them? Thank you for what you are doing and continue to do.
You're welcome. And this question was probably asked before I put out that Friday Field Notes titled Marriage, What to Expect. Go listen to that. In fact, maybe this question inspired that. I don't know. I can't remember. But in fact, I think it might have actually. Because I was going through these questions. I'm like, oh, that might be an interesting topic to discuss. So I think your question is actually what inspired me to do that podcast episode. So that episode was done for you.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to it,
not everyone gets their own episode, Carson.
You do, Carson. You do. So congratulations. All right. Last question.
Austin Hart, what is the best way to find more people to do manly things when where I live, there doesn't seem to be any?
There is. They're just doing it. So you need to go where they are. So whether it's archery or hunting or hiking or the shooting range, or even at work, there's probably people within your workspace who are doing interesting things, but you just don't know enough about them. Or they're working out, they're at the gym, they're at CrossFit, they're at jiu-jitsu. They're just doing the thing.
They're doing stuff.
Yeah. Right. And the reason you're like, well, where are they? Is because you're not there.
Yeah.
So you just got to go where the people are. If you want to meet people, if you want to meet strong people, you go to the gym. If you want to meet martial artists, you go train. If you want to meet guys who are into the Second Amendment and want to shoot guns and protect themselves, you go to the gun range.
Yeah.
So that's just what you do. There's great resources like meetup.com. There's your community center. There's the circle that you already have. Ask them what they do for fun and what they like. But everybody that I've met is usually through one of these activities. And one guy I think of right offhand is a good friend of mine. His name is Taylor Jacobson. I met him at CrossFit, and we'd go train in the morning and didn't know who he was, and we'd talk or whatever every once in a while. And then I think at some point, I invited him golfing or something, and then we got to know his wife, and my wife and her got along, and so we did things as a family. And that all came because I was at the gym and he was at the gym, and he seemed to be interested in some of the same things I was, and we built a friendship. So just go where the guys are, and ask. You got to be assertive, because sometimes this is uncomfortable. It's like if you don't know anybody or have these connections, it's uncomfortable to ask like, hey, what are you guys doing? You may not ask that way, but I would say, hey, is there anything that you enjoy for fun?
Yeah.
If you're at work, Kip, if you and I are working together and I've gotten to know you, I'm like, hey man, I've never asked you like outside of work, what do you do for fun? What are you into?
What manly things are you doing this weekend?
There you go. Post your pics.
Yeah.
So yeah, or even ask in the Facebook group. That's a place. Or if you join the Iron Council, there's your team, and they're doing meetups. So there's a lot of different opportunities that we've made available. But then also it's just practicing some assertiveness and looking in your inner circle, and then expanding that circle and going where the guys are.
Yeah. And if you want to join that 67,000 other men on that Facebook group, go to facebook.com/group/order of man. And of course, if you want to get on the court and maybe just get rubbed shoulder to shoulder with like-minded men, and I don't know how to say it any better than just getting on the court in life and taking the necessary actions, you can join the Iron Council to learn more about that. That's orderofman.com/Iron Council as well. Follow Mr. Mickler. Stay connected.
Go to Instagram, because we're doing a lot of those live videos and having some cool people on. So make sure you go there.
And that's at Ryan Mickler, both for Twitter and Instagram. And of course, if you're not subscribed to the podcast or the YouTube channel, jump on, subscribe, share this message. Ryan's doing a great job in regards to these snippets of these videos, right? I mean, we have these episodes, but we're starting to grab segments of those videos and making those available. So that way it's a lot easier for us to share this message and aspects of this message more easily with other individuals. So go to youtube.com/order of man to see those videos and share and be part of the movement and help other men, serve other men to level up.
Yes, sir. All right, Kip, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. Thanks for being in the battle. Stay strong, especially in these moments, not only for yourself, but the people who are relying upon you is very important. And I hope that we're doing a good enough job getting you the information and tools and resources to be able to do that. So stay plugged in, stay tuned in, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. And we will be back on Friday for the Friday Field Notes. But until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.